5,000 years ago, deep in a cave in what is now Peru, a human being sat down by a fire. They picked up a hollow tube made of ceramic. They filled it with dried leaves from a plant, and they deliberately set those leaves on fire and inhaled the smoke. They had no idea what nicotine was. They just knew it felt important. This is the oldest smoking scene in human history. And here's what's incredible. They weren't doing it to relax. They weren't addicted. They weren't on a smoke break. They were talking to spirits, diagnosing illness, entering a trance. This was not a habit. This was a technology of the mind. This is the old human, and today we're exploring when ancient humans started smoking and everything they knew about the plants they burned that we have completely forgotten. When you think of smoking, you probably think of cigarettes, maybe a pipe, maybe something less legal. But here's the thing. Humans have been deliberately inhaling burning plants for at least 5,000 years, across every continent, in completely different cultures that had no contact with each other. This was not one discovery. It was discovered over and over again. And ancient smoking was nothing like modern smoking. It was medicine. It was ritual. It was spirit communication. It was pain relief. It was social bonding. And most importantly, it was done with intention, with respect for the plant. Two things that modern smoking has completely lost. So let's go back 5,000 years, 7,000 years, across the Andes, across the steppes of Asia, through the forests of Europe, into the Amazon. Humans have been getting high for a very long time, and they were much better at it than we are. The oldest evidence of smoking comes from the Andes Mountains. Archaeologists have found ceramic pipes in Peru and Ecuador dating back 3,000 to 5,000 years, still with charred plant residue inside them. The oldest smoking pipes on Earth. The plant they were smoking was Nicotiana rustica, wild tobacco. And here's what you need to understand. This was not the tobacco in modern cigarettes. Nicotiana rustica has 3 to 4 times the nicotine content of commercial tobacco. The shamans who smoked this were not casually puffing. They were launching themselves into altered states of consciousness, and they weren't doing it for fun. Tobacco was exclusively used by shamans for healing rituals. They would smoke themselves into a trance state and then diagnose illness in their patients. They believed the smoke carried their consciousness into the spirit world where they could see what was wrong with a person's soul. The shaman was a bridge between worlds. The smoke was the vehicle. The plant was the teacher. This was not recreation. This was medicine. This was spiritual technology, and it was treated with a level of reverence that modern society reserves for almost nothing. The pipes themselves tell the story. They are found in ceremonial contexts, burials, temples, healing sites, not in trash heaps, not in casual domestic settings. These were sacred objects, carefully made and carefully used. When archaeologists find a 5,000-year-old pipe, they know they have found something important. But tobacco was just the beginning. 2,500 years ago, in the Pamir Mountains of Western China, the Jushi culture was doing something remarkable. They were burning cannabis at funerals, inside the graves. Archaeologists found wooden braziers, small platforms specifically built for burning plants, placed inside tombs. On those braziers were the charred remains of cannabis seeds and plant material. The stones inside the braziers were burned black from repeated use. These were not accidental. These were funeral tools. The Jushi were burning cannabis so that the smoke would fill the grave chamber. The living would breathe it outside. The dead would be surrounded by it inside. It was a shared experience between the living and the dead. The smoke bridged the gap. 2,500 years before anyone wrote about cannabis. And here's the thing about cannabis in the ancient world. It traveled along the Silk Road from Central Asia to the Middle East, to Africa, to India. Long before anyone wrote a botanical description, cannabis had already spread across half the planet because humans found it useful, and they shared that knowledge. Today, cannabis is a tourist attraction in Amsterdam, a dispensary menu in California, a political debate. But for the Jushi, it was how you said goodbye to your dead. The same plant, Completely different meaning. What happened to the ritual? And it wasn't just tobacco and cannabis. 7,000 years ago, before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, before writing, Neolithic Europeans were cultivating opium poppies, deliberately, across the entire continent. Archaeologists have found opium poppy seeds and residue in Neolithic settlements from Spain to Germany, from Switzerland to Italy, on pottery, on tools, in burial sites. The earliest known psychoactive drug in European history was not alcohol. It was opium. These people were Neolithic farmers. They didn't have writing, they didn't have metal tools, but they had figured out that the white sap from a certain flower could relieve pain, induce sleep, and alter consciousness. They knew this 7,000 years ago, and they passed that knowledge down for generations. And now we come to one of the great unsolved mysteries of archaeology. Nicotine has been found in the hair of Egyptian mummies from 1000 BCE. Tobacco is native to the Americas. The Americas and Egypt are on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean. How did nicotine get into an Egyptian mummy 3,000 years before Columbus crossed the Atlantic? There are three theories. Theory 1, ancient Egyptians sailed to the Americas and brought tobacco back. Theory 2, there was an ancient trade route across Asia that brought tobacco to Egypt that we haven't discovered yet. Theory 3, there was a plant species in Africa that contained nicotine that has since gone extinct. Archaeologists still do not agree. But whatever the answer is, the implication is staggering. Either ancient humans were crossing oceans thousands of years before we thought possible, or they had knowledge of psychoactive plants that spanned the entire planet. Either way, they knew more than we give them credit for. And then there is the Amazon. Indigenous Amazonian peoples used an estimated 50 or more psychoactive plants: ayahuasca, coca, tobacco, virola snuff, yopo, dozens of others. The rainforest was simultaneously a pharmacy, a spiritual toolkit, and a university of plant knowledge. The shamans had to figure out which plants did what, and here's what makes it mind-blowing. Ayahuasca, one of the most powerful psychedelics ever discovered, requires 2 plants to work. The vine contains DMT, but your body destroys it before it takes effect. You need a second plant to deactivate the enzyme that destroys it. Out of 80,000 Amazonian plant species, the shamans found the exact 2 that work together. How? And in 14th century Ethiopia, something even stranger was happening. Medieval Ethiopian Christians, members of an ancient Christian kingdom that predated most European churches, were using cannabis in religious rituals. Archaeologists found pipe bowls with charred cannabis in Ethiopian cave churches. African Christianity had a relationship with cannabis that European Christianity never knew about and would have considered deeply heretical. Think about that. On one side of the world, Christians were burning heretics. On the other side, Christians were burning cannabis in church. Same religion, completely different relationship with plants. The plant knowledge was local, not universal. When Europe colonized the world, it destroyed most of that local knowledge. So how do we know all of this? How do archaeologists prove that ancient humans were smoking specific plants 5,000 years ago? The answer is chemistry. Molecules survive for millennia. Scientists use gas chromatography to analyze the residue inside ancient pipes. They can identify the exact chemical signatures of nicotine, cannabinoids, and opiates. They find these molecules in pipe residue, on pottery, in human hair, and in dental calculus, the hardened plaque on ancient teeth. The evidence is molecular. Your body is an archaeological record of everything you have ever eaten, drunk, or inhaled. Ancient hair preserves nicotine metabolites for thousands of years. Ancient teeth preserve plant compounds. When scientists analyze the remains of ancient humans, they can reconstruct exactly what plants those humans were consuming. Your lifestyle is written in your molecules. And then Columbus arrived in the Americas in 1492. Within decades, tobacco had crossed the Atlantic. Within centuries, it had spread across the entire planet. But something happened during that journey. The plant stayed the same. The meaning was stripped away. Tobacco went from sacred medicine to colonial cash crop, from cash crop to industrial product, from industrial product to global addiction. The same plant that shamans used to speak to spirits was now being sold in vending machines. The ritual was gone. The intention was gone. Only the smoke remained. And here is the brutal comparison. Ancient smoking was sacred, ritualistic, communal, and intentional. Modern smoking is processed, addictive, isolated, and profitable. We took a sacred relationship with a plant and turned it into a public health crisis, and we did it in about 500 years. Modern cigarettes contain over 600 additives. Ancient pipes contained one plant. Modern smokers light up 20 times a day without thinking. Ancient shamans smoked in specific ceremonies for specific purposes with specific intentions. We stripped the ritual, added the chemicals, kept the smoke, and called it progress. And there is a health paradox that scientists are still trying to understand. Ancient humans who smoked did not develop lung cancer at the rates modern smokers do. Why? They smoked raw plants, not chemical cocktails. They smoked less frequently. They died younger from other causes before cancer could develop. And they approached plants with respect, not addiction. The context mattered as much as the chemistry. A shaman smoking to enter the spirit world, a modern office worker smoking to escape for 5 minutes. Same act, same plant family, completely different meaning. We took the most sacred technology ancient humans ever developed and turned it into a bad habit. The story of smoking is the story of everything we lost. We lost the plant knowledge. We lost the ritual. We lost the intention. We lost the community. We kept the part that kills us. And we made it a $1 trillion industry. If an ancient shaman could see what we did with their sacred plants, the vending machines, the warning labels, the hospital wards, they would not be angry. They would be confused. They would look at a cigarette and ask, "What do you use this for?" And when we said to relax, they would ask, "You need a plant to relax. What is wrong with your world that you cannot relax without smoke?" So let's update our chalkboard. Travel is done. Smoking is number 2. 6 more episodes in season 1. We are building a picture of everything ancient humans knew that we forgot, and the picture is getting more detailed every week. In the Museum of Lost Human Abilities, we add a new exhibit. Plant knowledge. 50 psychoactive plants in the Amazon alone. Opium in Europe 7,000 years ago. Cannabis funerals in ancient China. The deepest botanical knowledge in human history. Almost completely gone. The old human teaches us 3 things. 1. Plants were our first teachers and we fired them. 2. Ritual is what separates medicine from addiction and we stripped the ritual from everything. 3. Ancient humans understood the natural world in ways we are only just beginning to rediscover in laboratories. We are not smarter than ancient humans. We just have better machines. They had 50,000 years of accumulated plant knowledge passed down through generations. We have Google, and I promise you, the shamans knew more about the plants in their forest than the internet knows about anything. Next time on The Old Human, after the smoke cleared and the embers died, ancient humans did something else we've completely forgotten. They slept, not alone in locked rooms, in piles, tangled together for 290,000 years. Nobody slept alone. Insomnia did not exist. Why? And what happened when we stopped? If you made it this far, you now know more about ancient smoking than 99% of humans who have ever lived. Your ancestors would be impressed or concerned, probably both. Subscribe. New episodes every week, 16 episodes, 2 seasons. We're just getting started. Stick around. The next episode will change how you think about your bedroom, your bed, and every night you have ever spent alone. This is The Old Human.